Okay, where is it? Guys? What are you doing in my case, you handsome little devils? I'll tell you what, now that you're here, let's take a second to talk about some film gear that really sucks to buy, but you actually need. Come on. Here's the thing. Everybody wants to go out and buy the new camera or a new lens because, let's be honest, they're fun purchases. But the truth is that there's so many other pieces of film gear that we actually need and can make our lives a lot easier as filmmakers and content creators, but we don't go out and buy them because why? They suck to buy. Alright, so I'm not going to sugarcoat it, guys. Some of these purchases downright suck to make, but the truth is that you can benefit greatly from them, and that's why we're going to talk about them today. So let's get started. Alright, so the first piece of gear that I wanted to talk about is something that I was introduced to just recently actually, and that is this Pro Card Reader by Freewell. So I recently took a trip out to NAB and I went out there and I was shooting for a couple of days and I brought a couple of different cameras and I had some audio equipment with me which all took different media types. Some of them took CF Express type cards, some of them took those regular SD cards, and then the audio device took a micro SD card. So I needed a place to put all my SD cards that was safe and weather resistant. Now I came across this Freewell case, but the cool thing about this is that it's not just a case. It's actually a card reader for all your different media types in one place. It comes with a little USB-C cable that you could just plug right into your computer. And what's really cool about this thing is that it solves 4 problems in one device. Your place to store all your cards, but then it also acts as an SD card reader for all the different SD cards that you might have. And then on top of it, it is super fast. You have up to 10 gigs of blazing fast transfer speeds. So for me, this little thing solved a lot of problems. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, it's a little bit pricey. I believe right now you could get it for $100, and that definitely sucks. It sucks to spend $100 on this thing, but I will tell you that it's better than a case, and on top of it, it replaces 2, 3, maybe even 4 different SD card readers that you might have to go and buy. So it could be worth it. It could be worth looking into. Now, for the next piece of gear, it's not just one thing. I kind of grouped several different things into this. And for a second, I want to talk about audio. And the audio equipment that I'm talking about that I kind of recently discovered has made my life so much easier, especially when I step on a small set where I have a couple of different guys, but we're all doing a lot of different jobs. Getting yourself a boom pole and the corresponding holder is going to help you guys out a lot. I've tried using all the different mic stands under the sun. I've tried all-in-one boom poles where it's like the stand and an extender and a huge pole, and it's heavy, it's bulky. It broke, by the way. They're not long enough, they're not big enough, they're not strong enough. Finally, when I got myself a proper boom pole and the holder, and you attach this to a C-stand, I finally was able to have something that was super sturdy, reliable, lightweight, and most importantly, it got the job done, and I was able to put the mic anywhere I wanted to, even if it was like 10, 12 feet away. I was able to get that mic exactly where I wanted to. I think for me, this is something that is super important. I think a lot of filmmakers tend to overlook. I also think that it gives you just another layer of professionalism when you do step on a set and when you are rigging up your audio equipment. I think it's very important to have something like this and make sure that you have something that's solid, secure, and most importantly, easy to use. Now, a boom pole can cost you guys anywhere from about $50 to $100, and maybe even a little bit more if you guys want one that's a little bit more sturdier, a little bit better quality. And then you have, the holder for the boom pole, which is about $20 to $50. And then you actually have to get yourself a separate C-stand to attach this to, which can cost you anywhere from about $120 to $200. It sucks, I'm not gonna lie, spending that much money on something to hold a microphone, but it's important and I think it's worth taking a look into. Now, the obvious pieces of audio equipment that you guys definitely should already own is a good shotgun microphone and a good lav system. And if you guys haven't bought one of those, stop watching this video right now. Check out this link right up here where I break down a ton of different shotgun microphones in all different kinds of budgets. I definitely suggest watching that and making sure you get a solid shotgun microphone with a good lav system, because getting good quality, pristine audio is half the battle when it comes to filmmaking. One piece of audio gear that I used recently, and unfortunately I didn't get any B-roll of, which I feel like an idiot for, was this device called a Tentacle. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this before, but basically what it is it allows you to sync up multiple cameras. It doesn't matter if they're all different brands, or it could be a Sony, a Canon, a Blackmagic, whatever it is. It allows you to connect all of those cameras to timecode. Now, why is this important? So glad that you guys asked. Timecode is basically a way for your cameras to all be running at the same time. I don't know if that's the best way to put it, but basically it syncs up all your cameras, and all you have to do in post-production is is throw it into your editing software and you hit sync to timecode, and it syncs up all of your audio files and all your different cameras as if they were all recording in the same place at the same time. I definitely suggest that you guys go and you check it out, especially if you guys make a lot of documentaries where you have multiple cameras shooting at one time and some people are rolling and some people aren't. I think that it's extremely important. It's going to save you guys a ton of time in post-production. And if you guys want to learn more about the filmmaking gear that you need, or really anything involving the filmmaking process, then you guys got to check out Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes for creators. Skillshare has a class for everyone, from photography to graphic design, cooking, and much more. And what's really great about Skillshare is that you have the ability to take specific learning paths designed to take you from novice to expert. They have these hand-picked classes that start to build upon one another. I started taking editing classes from Ryan Cow and creative color grading from Jevin Dovey to sharpen up my editing skills, and it's made a huge impact on my post-production workflow. And right now, the first 500 people that use my link in the description down below will get their first month for free. Okay, now we're gonna talk about one aspect of gear that I really hate buying, and that's because it's gotta be one of the most unattractive things to possibly buy. But it's gotta be one of the most important, and that is a proper case and or bag for your equipment. So for a long time, I was an idiot and I would build out my rig and I would just carry my rig already built out in my car, carry it right to set with me, and I would just keep it all built because number one, I didn't want to take it apart each time, and number two, I didn't really have anything to keep my rig in. If I wanted to put my camera away, I would have to like take everything apart and put it into a couple of different places because I didn't have one centralized case or bag for my film gear. And that was a really big mistake because what happened was over time, you know, little by little, my gear would start breaking down, little pieces would come up missing or break, and I would have to slowly replace them, which would cost me time and money. Finally, I was like, all right, it's time to take everything to the next level. I really want to, you know, level up my filmmaking gear. I want to level up everything that I'm doing. So I said, you know what, let me go out and invest in a case. I did a ton of research and I finally found a case that would be perfect for me. Now, I rock a huge Ursa 12K camera. It's a pretty big, bulky piece of equipment. To me, I needed something that was pretty big, but also pretty deep. So what did I do? I went out and bought a 1610 Pelican case because it was big enough to hold everything that I needed for my camera and even some additional accessories. And then it also was deep enough to be able to put my camera in without having to break the whole thing down. So the 1610 case to me was a perfect fit. And I think, you know, personally, it's a great buy. It has wheels to be able to wheel everything around. You could put big, heavy stuff on top of it. I've banged this thing up. I've dropped it. I've, you know, thrown it in the back of a pickup truck. I've gotten it dusty. It's completely weather resistant. And that's something that you need in a case. Now, I will say that Pelican cases are pretty expensive. So if you guys are looking to buy a case, I would definitely do your research, but I stand behind Pelican cases. I think everybody in the industry does. There's a reason why they're so expensive. There's a reason why they're so good. Now, shortly after I went and spent all this money on this big Pelican case, I had a project that needed me to go and travel. I do not recommend, let me just say this again, I do not recommend checking your camera bag, even if it is in a locked up, sewn tight up Pelican case, and I'll tell you why. The second that somebody sees a Pelican case, they know something expensive is in there, and I've seen horror stories online. Thank God it's never happened to me, but I've seen horror stories online about people getting their case broken into and all of their camera gear stolen, and when they get their, you know, checked bag or their checked case back from the airport, everything was gone. So I highly recommend that if you do, you know, travel with your gear and you are keeping it in a Pelican case, bring a case that has the ability to be a carry-on instead of, you know, having to check that in. Now, my big 1610 case, you have to check that in, but I did my research and I found an awesome case for a great price, and that was this Volt 525 case, which was perfect for me. Now, it wasn't as deep as my 1610 case, so I couldn't just throw my Ursa in there and be done with it, but it was just enough to be able to fit in the overhead, and it was a great price. And it's weather resistant. I've banged this thing up too. I've drug it through the snow, through the water, through the mud. All my gear has been safe. And most importantly, I'm able to put it in the overhead where I can keep an eye on it and I know I'm not gonna get it stolen from. Now, another thing that I do from time to time is that I'll go and take trips, or I'll do some sort of travel filmmaking. And obviously you can't take a big, huge Pelican case on your back hiking up mountains. So obviously you got to get yourself a good backpack. Now, I have to say, man, Nomad and Peter McKinnon have put together a sick backpack. I bought this bag a few years ago and it has been through so many different terrains and so many different trips with me. And this bag is made with great quality materials. It has kept all my gear safe. I've thrown it in the back of a dune buggy and gotten dirt and sand and dust all over the bag. I opened the bag and my equipment is pristine. So I highly recommend getting one of these bags as well. I can vouch for it. Make sure you get yourself something that's big enough but also is weather resistant. Okay, on to the next piece of gear that I think every single filmmaker should have. Even if you're not really big into cinematography, I highly recommend that every filmmaker should own a B7C light bulb and an Aperture Mini. And the reason why I think that these two lights are so important, and I'm gonna get to a third light in a second, but the reason why I think that these lights are so important is because they're so easy to use in any kind of practical situation. And the fact that they're so small, you can easily just throw them in your camera bag and haul these around no problem. The reason why I love the B7C light bulb is that you could literally change this in any kind of, lamp or lighting fixture. You could just change that light bulb and have complete control over it because this is a full RGB light. The other thing that I really suggest getting is yourself a little Aperture Mini. And the reason why I love these things is because they're super sturdy, but also you could just put them anywhere. If you're shooting in a car or you're shooting in a kitchen or any kind of practical situation, you can easily put these lights somewhere just to lift exposure or just to be a practical in your frame. Now, the third light that I want to talk about is a little bit more expensive, and that is an Aperture Infinibar. And I suggest getting yourself at least a 2-foot one. And the reason why I suggest doing that is because this light is super powerful, but it's also really soft and it looks really great on skin. But it has these awesome magnets that are super strong that you could attach to almost anything and have complete control over that light via Sidus Link that you could have on your phone, which is extremely usable in so many different applications. So I highly suggest you guys take a look into these three lights. They're all three made by Aperture, which is a great company and a company I stand behind. And I do have a 10% off discount code if you guys do want to check out from Aperture. But again, just like everything else, I'm going to drop some links in the description down below, so you guys feel free to check those out. So I'm not sure why this little piece of gear costs $100. To me, that's kind of crazy, but I will say that this could probably be one of the most important pieces of gear that I bought over the last couple of years. This right here is a color checker. Now, why is a color checker so important? Well, sometimes we're in so many different situations where we could be on the fly and we're shooting and we're not really being super critical over our white balance. But this little thing makes life so much easier because every now and again, especially when I'm in like daylight exterior shooting and the sun is changing drastically, which means that the lighting temperature is changing, I'll tell my subjects, I'll just give it to them and I'll ask them to hold this up. And this saves so much time in post-production because all you have to do is, grab one frame of this, put the little color dropper tool on the gray or the white, and boom, you have your image color balanced. I have a little bit of trouble, especially when I'm in post-production, color matching all of my different shots. Sometimes some will be a little bit cooler, a little bit greener, or a little bit more magenta. Being able to have something like that you could quickly just ask your subject to hold up for 2 seconds and boom, you got yourself the perfect color temperature and tint is super helpful, especially when you're talking about, spending a ton of time color grading in post-production. So I highly suggest checking out, this product. And you don't necessarily have to get this one. I'm going to leave this link down below. I recommend getting this one. To me, this has worked great, but there's a ton of different color checkers that you guys can go and try out. Now, we are on to the last piece of gear. And the last thing that I want to talk about could be one of the most important things, and that is talking about your media storage. Now, when we talk about media storage, there's a lot of different ways to go about this, but what I have found over the years is that if you go cheap, you're really putting a lot on the line in terms of like the footage that you're storing. When you buy a cheap hard drive, eventually that hard drive is going to either corrupt or it's going to fail or it's going to break or whatever it is. I've been fortunate enough to switch over to these, T7 SSDs by Samsung. I think they're absolutely amazing. They're super sturdy. If you drop them, you get a little water on them, they're absolutely fine. These things are very durable. They do not break. And most importantly,
they're super fast and reliable. But the other thing that I want to tell you guys about is getting yourself a NAS system. For some of you guys who don't know, a NAS system is a network attached storage. Basically what this is a unit that holds a lot of different hard drives inside that unit, and it's made to house most of what you're shooting for your entire studio in there. It's almost like having your own server that you could share a link to with anybody around the world. They could have access to it, and you give them a password and that link, and they could get in there and download and upload footage straight from that link. That's number one. Number two, it gives you another layer of protection when you talk about storing your footage, because if a drive is about to fail, the system will let you know and you can replace the drive. Now, there's a couple of really popular systems out there. Synology has a few really great systems that a lot of filmmakers swear by. I like Synology. I've had a little trouble with them in the past, but a new one that just came out is the Ugreen NAS systems, which I've just started using, and so far they've been great to me. I'm gonna leave links to all of this gear down below, but don't think that you have to buy, all of this gear that I'm telling you guys to. Do your research, figure out what's right for you, because what's right for me might not be right for you. However, if you guys do purchase from those links, you do help out the channel, which I would greatly appreciate. I wanna thank you guys so much for stopping in and hanging out, and yeah, man, I'll see you guys next week. Deuces.